Hello and welcome. Thank you for your patience. If you're looking for the OER Publishing Support Program info session, you've got the right place. So, and we'll get started as we're just 5 minutes late here. So I'm going to jump right in and start with a land acknowledgement. So at the Basque University, as you know, is a online university. So we have employees all over Canada, I think internationally as well. So we'd like to respectfully acknowledge that we live and work on the traditional lands of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. We honor the ancestry, heritage, and gifts of the Indigenous peoples and give thanks to them. So for myself, I live on Vancouver Island, and where I live on the traditional territory of the Comox, Qualicum, and Coast Salish First Peoples. I'd just like to give a little introduction to the folks that will be supporting you during this program. There's, of course, myself, Dan Cocroft. I'm the OER librarian here at AU. We also have McKinley Darlington, who's just joined us. She is the interim director of AU Press. And we will be having a OER project coordinator position join us as well. We can't talk about who's supporting you without mentioning the great work of Kathy Killow and Megan Hall, who really made this program possible. I'm going to jump in with a quick session overview here. So we're going to first talk about OER, what it is. Some folks may not be familiar with it. Maybe you've heard me speak on it many times before, but it's great that we're on the same page. Then I'm going to talk about the OER Publishing Support Program itself. You may hear me use the acronym OPSP, just easier for me. Then we'll talk about what we're looking for, so kind of the projects we're really excited to support. What happens to published OER that goes through this program. The next steps, particularly how you can get involved. Library resources. Since this is a library event, I always like to share all the resources that I make. And then finally, we have a question and answer period for anybody who has further questions about it. And this session will be recorded, so don't worry if you have to run. I will be handing it out later. So let's start with what is OER? What is or what are OER? So if we use the UNESCO definition, open educational resources are teaching, learning, and research materials in any medium. These reside in the public domain or have been released under an open license that permits no cost access, use, adaptation, and redistribution by others with no or limited restrictions. Well, what does that look like in practice? It can look like an image, it can be a textbook, a song, any kind of material that we can use for education. For the purposes of this presentation, I will be focusing mostly on textbooks. So keep that in mind. If you're not sure if something is an OER or not, we like to use this little rule called the 5 R's of OER. I believe it was coined by David Wiley. So you're looking at the license to see if it allows you to retain the object. That means keep it. Revise it. That means just change it the way you like it. Remix it, which means that you can take parts of it and move them, combine them with other OER. If you're allowed to reuse it and redistribute it. So the main difference we like to think about between open access and OER is that you can't modify open access material. OER you can. So you can localize that to maybe your own language or use specific examples in your context. The other advantages of using OER, and these are just some of them, the big one is cost savings. So obviously an institution can save money if they are paying for the textbooks. And in AU's case, we can pass those savings along to students. So a lot of courses we have a CMF or course materials fee. If all the materials in a course are using, say, library materials that we already pay for, OER, or freely available material, we can eliminate that CMF so students can save that money. And being a student not so long ago myself, I know that can make a big difference. The big and obvious advantage to using OER is that you are free to modify it. You don't have to pay any money, and you can change it anyway to make it the way you want, as provided that you attribute the original author. OER also come with an easy to understand licensing system. We mostly make use of the Creative Commons licensing system. I won't go into that today as we're just doing a brief overview, but if you want to check out some of my other resources, we go into it in a bit more depth. Another nice thing about using OER is that they're accessible anywhere at any time. So someone across the world, like I said, can take your work and they can translate it, or they can use examples that fit their context. Students can use these textbooks before their courses started, so they don't need to wait. They can also use it after their course has ended. And in fact, they can actually use the textbook forever. So that's a really awesome open way of thinking about things. So when it comes to the OER Publishing Support Program, or OPSP, we are trying to find ways to support faculty to create these materials. So we provide comprehensive support and funding for the development of accessible, consistent, high-quality, openly licensed resources, particularly for use in AU courses, although there might be some exceptions. We support things like project management, copy editing, typesetting, design, file conversion or creation, and DOI registration. So all the things that a press are really good at is why we're so lucky to work with AU Press. I also wanted to mention that if you get OPSP support, this is not just a lump sum of money and leading you to it. It will be a collaborative process, and you will be supported the whole way. So there'll be clear, consistent communication, and there will be collaboration with course production staff. So don't worry about things like course revision deadlines and stuff. We'll make sure that's covered. There are a few particular things or aspects of projects that we like to support. One of the main things is OER ready authors. So we love authors who are super confident in the OER that they've chosen. They either like it the way that it is, or they have a really clear vision of what they want it to become and know how to get there. We love a focus on content over technology. Not that the program won't support things like interactive elements like H5P or say video, that type of thing. It's just that those things are more like icing, and what we're looking at is building the cake first. In terms of content, we're looking for publication-friendly content. So there's definitely a focus for text-based materials, and we tend to support material that's has an existing open license on it. So not creating an OER from scratch. We recognize that is a huge undertaking. So when you're thinking about applying, think about the textbooks that you could adapt, or different parts of different textbooks that you could remix together. We're also looking for information that is comprehensive, accurate, and organized. In particular, we're looking for information that is not going to be obsolete very quickly. So what happens to published OER? Well, it gets released under the AU Press Remix imprint. So you'll see there on the right, there are 3 images, and those are covers of our first 3 OER. I say our, but really it's the press who's done all the work, so kudos to them. AU Press titles are posted on the Manifold platform. So this is an awesome web-based platform that provides learners with options to reflow text. So it's super accessible. They can read it online. They can download multiple formats if they want to use it on their e-reader or their iPad or whatever. Students can annotate. Also, they can make notes. They can highlight different portions of the text, and it can even generate citations. So I will highly encourage you folks to check this out. I'm going to grab a link to the imprint and pop it in the chat just so that we have that handy. And for the folks watching the recording, I will include the link as well, if I remember. Another great aspect of the published finished OER is that they might have a global impact. So once they're finished, I put them onto OER repositories. So people all around the world, researchers and students, can grab them and modify them as they wish. So how can you get involved? Well, there's a few next steps. So first, you want to make sure that you have an OER selected. So if you have something in mind, well, I can help you with any questions related to licensing, formats, that type of thing. Say you have two different OER and they don't have the same license. Can I put them together? That type of question. Anything like that. If you're not sure about the OER that you've chosen to adapt or don't have one, I can help with that too. So I have tons of resources and we'll talk about those in the next slide. If you are confident in your resource choice, you can request an application form, either by contacting myself or you can email oer@thebasketU.ca. I'll be happy to guide you through the application process. I've submitted on behalf of people in the past. And it's important to remember that the application windows only opens every January. So for the whole month, you can submit that. So it's coming up real quick. Since this is a library presentation, I really wanted to share some of my resources that I've created. There is the OER guide. This is your one-stop shop for everything about OER here at AU. So how to learn about copyright, licensing, Creative Commons. It also links out to a whole bunch of other resources as well. So that's a great starting point. I'm going to grab that and also pop it in the chat. Secondly, I have the OER by discipline guide. So this is a curated collection that I update every year. It's a searchable list of adoption-ready OER. Usually those are ones that are being used at other institutions. You can either browse different subject areas, or you can even search for your specific course number and see what I've suggested. So it's a cool option. I'm just going to pop that link in the chat as well. I also host a quarterly open community of practice. So this is a group that rather informally meets to discuss basically anything related to open. So if you are an OER expert or a newbie, you're at home here. So you can stay up to date. I have updates that I release and chat with other people and learn about new opportunities. So the next one is December 11th. If you want to attend, just let me know and I'll make sure you get added. We'll be talking about open data. We'll have a little presentation by our data librarian. So super exciting stuff. Finally, there's the OER Community Corner on Engage. So it's basically a place online that we can all gather and share different interesting things. So join us there. I will have the link in the email as well. And I have breezed through this, and we are at the question and answer period already. So are there any questions about this program? Go ahead, Stella.
Hello, thank you for doing this. So I'm completely new to this program, so I was wondering if if you have a course where there isn't a good textbook for
Yep.
it, and you've written sort of material, so it's pretty well structured, and directs to other supporting stuff. Is that sort of thing appropriate for turning into an OER?
It's a great question, actually, because we've had lots of discussions about this. So at AU, there's a specific policy called the intellectual property policy. So all work created in the practice of teaching and learning belongs to the university. So the university gets to make decisions about licensing. So if you created a lot of material that could be turned into a textbook, there's certainly ways where we could look into openly licensing that. So I would encourage you to apply or us to have further discussions about that.
And whose decision is it ultimately whether that's okay or not? Does it go all the way up to Alex, or is it dean level, or?
My guess would be dean level, but it's definitely a number of people that have that decision.
Okay, and I have a second question, if that's
Sure.
okay. So what sort of length of material are you, do you typically find valuable to put in an OER book as opposed to other types of OER? I mean, I've made other types of OER, videos and sort of course guides and worksheets and stuff, but nothing bigger. Is there like a volume size which is most effective?
Most effective is what will be most effective pedagogically. So some textbooks are really big, really small. Kathy or McKinley, do you want to jump in and you might have a better idea of what that ideal size might look like.
Well, I'll take this as we were just told, it all depends on what you need pedagogically for your course. It needs to be something that would be standalone in the end, that somebody else could use. It can't be bits and pieces that don't make sense as a whole. So it sort of needs to be from beginning to end, a whole, like you would look at a textbook. Doesn't have to be a long textbook. It could be 50 pages. It could be 800 pages, depending upon what the course requirements are and the material that you need to include to meet the learning objectives of the course. We just need to make sure that material that you want to add to it does not have a restrictive license, because you don't want to create an OER that's published that only has links to material that may disappear. Those links may break after some time. And if you can't include that material right in the OER, then that could be problematic for the students if they have the OER and you want them to use some of this supplementary material via links. And that's where working with Dan is very helpful, because he can help you identify the licensing of some of this other material. I would recommend having a look at the 3 OERs that we have published at AU Press. They vary in length and discipline. So you can kind of get a feel for what we have done so far. When Dan was, you had asked Dan about the decision making, the application process, there is a committee and it's made up of deans, or they're somebody that the dean themselves has assigned. And it is the group of deans that will look at the applications and make a decision on which projects will receive during this application round, the OPSP funding support.
Thanks very much.
That was helpful and answered your question, I hope?
Yes, that's great.
Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Marty.
Hi, Kathy, and hi, Dan. I have a question about Stella's question, although my too many dogs were barking and I may have missed what she said. But I guess I did want to hear is there oversight at Athabasca about what we can use as open source? Or is that something we as course creators, with collaboration with our production group, can decide for ourselves? And I ask because I've never asked for permission before. I happen though to work in an area where there's usually good coverage with open source publications. Not always, and sometimes we don't have any choice and we have to ask for copyright permissions and so on, although we try really hard not to do that. But so my first question is there oversight? Or if the academic or the course production people sign off on it, is it just a go?
My understanding is that in light of academic freedom, really it's up to you. So if you're working with the team and they're all saying yes, then open access material or OER is generally very much encouraged.
Okay, and so my last question, that's great, that's wonderful to hear. And my last question is, can we go ahead and just create our own? I mean, we can all self-publish and do, of course, Kathy, we would much rather work with Hager Press and actually put something together that's going to be well vetted and well published, well marketed, and so on. But do we have the opportunity now to use some of our research leave or apply for these various funding opportunities to actually put an open source resource together? Or can we just kind of do it on our own and then use it in the courses? Does that fall under academic freedom again?
Yeah, so that's kind of my answer would be yes and no. So if you look at the intellectual property policy, there's different categories. I believe there's 3 different categories of work that's excluded or included as your own intellectual property. So if it's in the course of teaching and learning, say making a course outline or something like that, or a course package, the copyright of that would belong to the university. So they get to make decisions about licensing for good or worse. When it comes to research, I believe that is not, I believe it's completely up to you as to how you wish to license it, because you own the copyright. There is a 3rd category that's a shared responsibility, which is a gray area, but I can't remember what the one's called.
Okay, well, that's really helpful because that gives me, I can have a look for those 3 categories. Thank you very much, Dan.
Totally, yeah, and I can send you that as well if you want some more info.
Yeah, please. Thank you.
Any other questions? See, McKinley is typing there.
I was just going to drop the intellectual property policy into the chat, but there's actually 4 categories related to intellectual property. Yeah, no worries. So there's administrative and operational activities. Then there's the teaching and learning responsibilities, which is entirely the ownership of the institution. There's academic research activities and then external research activities as well. So those 2 are separated only in the research space and have different ownership rights depending on how that research is being conducted. But yeah, you're bang on with the teaching and learning responsibility piece.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing and looking at that for me. And just while folks think of any other questions, if you have any, I'll put up this last slide. Just thank you for attending. And here's some information about how to contact us. So I did have the Remix imprint linked in the chat there to take a look at some examples of finished products. If you want to contact the OPSP team, you can email them at oerpublishing@athabascau.ca. You could also just contact me at dcocroft@thebestcu.ca, or you can use the OER at thebestcu.ca, which just redirects to me. So it's the same email. So with that, I'll just wait and see if there's any. Great, thanks, Sergey. All right, take care and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye. And then figure out how to stop it without leaving. End the meeting, I think.